San Francisco taught me one thing: never get in a gunfight with Chase Sexton unless you know when the other guy's gonna pull the trigger. Chase is the number one on the KTM, 3 gates from the box. Let's watch him as the gate drops. Oh. Spot on. Here, let's back this up in slow motion. And I want you to pay attention to his throttle hand and the gate. If we can multitask. Usually men are not that good at multitasking, ask my wife, but I digress. Did his elbow drop before the gate? Ooh, that is so close to call. To me, in my honest opinion, it seems as if he was timing the gate. He was counting, he knew when he was going to drop, or he had a suspicion of when it was going to drop. And he used that to his advantage. Is that something that will work every time? I don't know. Unless you pay the guys that are actually pressing the button, it's probably not going to work. If anything, every professional race I've been to, they do it differently. They go 5 seconds, some they go 10 seconds, sometimes it's 8 seconds, sometimes it's 15 seconds, and just destroys your clutch altogether. He, to me, timed this. Here, let's watch a different angle once we see him just get that whole shot and just move all the way down. And what I thought was interesting was there's tire warmers on these guys' bikes back in the pits. It's a mud race. Have you ever seen tire warmers for guys on a mud race? It's all because of that metal gate, which is, again, incredibly interesting that you're having tire warmers. And if you saw my previous video about the whole shot devices, but here, let's watch them from a different angle. And also to point out is look at how much he's pumping himself up, which we all know that adrenaline is that thing that can spike you to perform better, or you can run away using adrenaline at the same time. You see a lot of guys do this. You see Kenny, you see Jet. So I would say if the best riders in the world are doing it, you should too before a race. It's going to help you with that split. Boom, boom, boom. Let's give Chase the benefit of the doubt that he didn't time the gate. Well, this is proof that pumping yourself up before can improve your reaction time. So let's watch. He's going to be this rider. And again, let's pay attention to the gate and him moving to here. We can look at his front wheel to the gate. Here we are in slow-mo. That just looks like perfect timing. And there's signals that go from the brain down to your arm to let go of the clutch. So if this happened instantaneous, to me, I am just going to go, he counted. But I want to know what you guys think down below here. We'll watch that in real time. Boom. Woo. Woohoo, just perfect timing. That has to go down as the perfect gate drop ever. The biggest thing I notice about these riders riding in the mud is how much they were coasting, and they were all about keeping their momentum up, because in the mud, it's going to grab you, it's going to hold you back, so therefore you need to be able to push through the mud, and you need to keep your bike safe. So these riders were doing 2 things. They weren't using their clutches much. They were downshifting to brake, and they were coasting in places and trying to have a little bit amount of power almost everywhere. They didn't want to stop completely, because then that's when they were going to tip over and get stuck and have to use that clutch to all the way through and overheat the motorcycle. So it was a fine line between, am I riding around in first gear, or am I going to be able to keep my momentum up and still be able to be second, third, and fourth and push through the mud? So we'll watch as the 2 riders that I picked was Sexton and Tomac to show us. Watch Sexton as he's just coasting and just slowly just keeping a little bit of throttle on and not braking hard. Here he is coming through that same corner. And then watch as he's just keeping his body position centered on the motorcycle. It's easier to balance the faster you're going. Once you slow down, that's when you're going to get all kiltered and have to put your feet down and potentially fall over and have that front end stick. But watch Chase as he's keeping his momentum up here, up going backwards on the start, and he's able to lean back and forth. Just the amount of sheer balance these riders have is astronomical. This proved to me that, yeah, riding in the mud is one of those things where you don't have to do it all the time, and these riders don't do it all the time because they don't have to, and it's hard on the motorcycle. Nobody likes running with pure rotors that don't have holes in them, and nobody likes to just coast around and roll over everything, but it really shows the skill of the riders, their ability to be patient. And it is interesting, or I would say ironic, that the riders that did the best were veterans of the sport, because they knew how to slow down to go fast. Where I believe what Jet was doing wrong is Jet was sort of coming in and attacking the track, and the track just couldn't hold him. It literally pushed out from under him. And here we'll watch Tomac. And Tomac has always been a rider that has so much power built into his 450, whatever bike it was, the Cowie, the Yamaha. I just have heard so many rumors that he has a strong package that would normally rip the arms off of a typical rider, but he likes that. And we've heard him countless times in Supercross where he'll just load that motorcycle and just slingshot out. But here, he did a miraculous job at just saving the motorcycle throughout the whole main event, because if you overheat that sucker and it blows up, you get no points because 22nd place doesn't give any points. And what did he do a little bit differently that I saw him do than other riders was he stood up around the corners, and staying up around the corners enabled him to not use that clutch, to not stop and have to rely on that clutch. Here's a corner of him where he is grabbing the clutch, but he's not just loading it like he normally does. And again, it has a lot to do with the conditions. If he was to just stop, he would have to really force it to use that clutch to get him out. There we saw him just a little bit. There I could tell that he is loading that bike a little bit to get out of this rut right here. You can see it right as he's going. He did keep it to a minimum. Again, I showed you a section where Sexton was going through, and now here's Tomac going through the same corner where he's standing up, where Sexton was sitting down. But he was keeping his momentum up, sitting down. And then you got Tomac standing up to prevent himself from using that clutch. Here's another corner. Him not grabbing that clutch. He's got that finger on there just in case. And look at the ruts on the triples. You couldn't even jump if you really wanted to because they were so just V'd out like a whoop section gets. You two-wheeled knuckleheads, if you've made it this far, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. You help out this channel quite a bit. And WFO, the like button. The algorithm loves it. This video gets pushed to more and more people. Helps me, keeps me around, keeps me bringing awesome content to you guys. I do have to give Vince Freeze props because he had the best starting line or line into the first corner that I saw of anybody. Yeah. Reluctantly, I do have to say Vince had the best line here. He is, yes, is he cutting people off? That's what Vince does. However, watch what he does coming into this corner. And here, I'll back it up so you can see where he is on the gate. Boom, this guy right here. This was in the LCQ, and eventually he did get penalized in his heat race, and also his motorcycle did blow up, so he wasn't able to make the main event. But look at this line. As he's coming in, yeah, he's cutting people off like Justin Cooper, but there's no ruts. He doesn't have to worry about getting cross-rutted or stuck in the deep. He can just cut over on people, brake a little hard, and then accelerate on the inside and create new lines there. And then he also does it here. I got to give it up to him. That was a fantastic line. And there has been talk, at least on my channel, about the roll-offs, and you need to have like some sort of a button on your handlebars so that guys like Jason Anderson and Justin Barshow wouldn't have crashed. I went over it extensively in my previous video. That is going to be at the end of this video. If you click on video icons, you'll be able to watch that one as well. But watch Jorge Prado as he's putting on his roll-offs. There's actually a tear-off here in front of all of them, so that is just for the start. These riders just use that one just for the start. Sometimes they'll load a couple of them on there, so then they can have clear goggles for their roll-offs to be clean for the rest of the race. And it's worth pointing out because it's something that we can learn from if you ever are going to be in a situation where you need to have roll-offs. It's important for the start to have a tear-off on top. And there's actually a system out there that is automatic. Risk Racing, I got to give it up to a couple of the privateers. David Pulley actually sent this to me, showing that, hey, it's just a system where it is a button that you can put on your handlebar where it's going to automatically do the roll-off system for you, which is pretty cool. It's interesting that none of the factory boys had that, because that could have saved them from some of the gnarly crashes they had, compiled with the whole shot button. And finally, in closing, I thought this was interesting on MAS's racing. They were showing how gnarly the track was. Yeah, slop, nobody enjoys this stuff. The ruts were incredibly deep. It really showed, again, the riders that were patient and could slow down to go fast. And I thought it was interesting reading some of the comments of saying, GNCC ruts, they're the guys that are going to own everybody. A lot of comments on my channel where Billy Bolt would have just owned everybody. And I don't really disagree, but he would have had to start out in front of them to be able to beat them. And there's that first race to the first corner. That is it, folks. Till next time, I want to make sure that you guys keep it WFO and keep an eye out for this week's podcast, Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Brah.